Leslie is in the total purple colour scheme, 2 shades of purple. Bit of that oil dry being kicked up here. But Sabi and Lockie in the lead at the moment. This race is shaking out at the moment because of the pit stops. This always happens in these endurance races. About 34 minutes to go, and then we'll get the feel probably in about 10 minutes time about where it's really going, and just trying to look at some of the lap times now. And I think that Buncombe is still going very strongly in this car, because Buncombe knows the track conditions. He's been in the car for the whole period, Robert, so he's into the swing of things. The adrenaline's going and he's in the rhythm. There's the 83 car, which is currently in the pits, going through its pit stop.
The 83 car just waiting for the 4 minutes to tick down. Like you say, Buncombe is in a rhythm.
How frustrating is that? And also we'll be watching the speed of the Stretton car. Martin Stretton just did a 1:44.664. So Stretton certainly pushing that car hard, going perhaps a little bit quicker than its owner, Freddie Kumchik, did. But as we say, this race in very fascinating stage at the moment. These two Jaguars running at the same pace, as you can see.
Similar pace, not quite the same pace. It's very interesting to see that old age and treachery is outweighing youth and skill at the moment. Andy Wallace is starting to stretch his legs, and it'll be very interesting to see how quickly this man, Callum Lockie, can get into his stride. That 83 car still leads, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Andy Wallace, I said a little earlier, is he's been racing sports cars at the top level now for 25 years continuously. He's right on his game still, the man originally from Oxford. But love to see these Nissans racing again. And this Group C race has been one of the highlights of this wonderful Silverstone Classic meeting for us. We've had so much racing here, but this race absolutely superb.
Phenomenal to see the fight being taken to the Jaguars from the Nissan as well. Yes, it's a lovely car. Yes, it's out here competing, but it's here competing for the victory. It's taking the fight to them. Great stuff.
Yeah, of course, that turbocharger will wind the horsepower up to the best part of 1,000 if you want for qualifying. That's what they did at Le Mans, that famous Mark Blundell lap.
So riding with Callum as he comes underneath the Daily Express Bridge, up into the complex now, around the blind left-hander at Priory, using lots of the curb on the inside. That's the correct line. Then going in early on the brakes. There's lots of grip on the inside. Just got to be careful of that oil load, Callum.
Yeah, you saw how the car twitched then. Just there isn't the same level of grip there, and it snatched back as it got grip again.
And of course, Callum is doing equations in his mind. He's driven this car before here at Silverstone, but he hasn't driven it this afternoon here at Silverstone. I was out on the circuit earlier, and the circuit's almost like a wild animal. It's evolving all the time. It's changing. There's oil dry on places. There's moisture down in other places that almost change lap by lap, Andrew.
A particular meeting like this, where there's a lot of old cars, a lot more oil down than you normally have. You've just got to pay attention all the time.
Yes, and that's why this man, Chris Buncombe, is going so well. As you mentioned earlier, he's been out from the start of the race and he's watched the circuit change, whereas Callum Lockie has had to come into it fresh. Yes, he's going to take a couple laps just to get up there. So as the pit stop window is now unwinding, Buncombe leads, Lockie second with Hart third.
Just looking at the respective lap times, I think the fastest man out there at the moment is Andy Wallace, as John Hindhoff rejoins me.
I'm reminded of the 1990 Le Mans, something that Rob Barth said there about the Nissan taking the battle to the Silk-Cut Jaguars. It was exactly that story in 1990. The MPTI cars running the Jags close for 14 or 15 hours. They had the fastest race lap, and it was only in the last portion of the race that the Jaguars held sway and took that very, very emotional victory. Half an hour to go here at the David Leslie Memorial Trophy here at Silverstone. Now there is Andy Wallace carving his way through traffic, reacquainting himself with a Silk-Cut Jaguar. Behind him is Chris Buncombe, but he's ahead on the road by almost a full lap.
And there, that Jaguar with the wheel spat missing now, John. And of course that was part of the question about the reason why he's behind now after that puncture.
You've got to think that that car would have been in really good shape to be leading this race had Justin Law not had that problem with the tyre earlier on and put them beginning to close in and put another lap on it.
And that later Jaguar doesn't have the wheel spats because they were just too fiddly to take off at pit stops.
Correct.
So they discarded that idea, made them a little bit more aerodynamic, but